I want to welcome back Dr. Andrea Wong, Senior Vice President, Scientific and Regulatory Affairs at the Council for Responsible Nutrition, and Dr. Luke Huber, Vice President for Scientific and Regulatory Affairs. So good to see you both, and thank you again for your presentation. We've got a lot of good comments and questions about it, so I want to jump right in.
Great, go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, very good. The first question is, I note that many patients or customers often take several preparations of vitamin C. A single vitamin plus a multivitamin plus fortified foods, etc., or a very large dose, especially recently during the COVID situation. I always warn them about that this could cause GI upset, diarrhea, etc. Are there other risks of taking 500 to 2,000 milligrams or more of vitamin C long-term besides that? Is there any benefit? And what would the optimal dose be, if any?
So I can take that one. So with regard to safety and side effects, you certainly get into more of those when you get above 2,000 milligrams per day. So 2,000 milligrams is the upper limit for adults. So that's what you're typically going to be recommending is going to be 2,000 or less. When you get into those higher doses, there's going to be more likely to be drug-nutrient interactions, potential side effects, that type of thing, and they should really check with their doctor when you get up to those doses. In terms of benefit, going back to the common cold, that's something that overall there seems to be a benefit with. There was a Cochrane study that was done that shows it seems to shave off about a day and a half from the common cold. But the questioner is right. GI upset is going to be the #1 symptom, and again, worse over 2 grams. But even at 2 grams, some people can get some GI upset and loose stools. In terms of COVID in this current situation, as I mentioned in the presentation, much of the research is actually being done on intravenous vitamin C, but there is research also being done on oral vitamin C at 8 grams a day at Cleveland Clinic. So that'll be interesting to see, but that's not done yet. But there's no research yet with COVID and vitamin C, so that's something that everybody should be aware of. And the historical research on common cold is really what we have at this point. And with the common cold, it does seem like the benefits are higher up at that 2 gram level compared to lower doses based on the research. And it seems like people who have jobs or lifestyle that are high stress, like soldiers, endurance athletes, those sorts of individuals, have more of a benefit with vitamin C. So when they take vitamin C prophylactically, it seems like they're more likely to be saved from colds than other populations. So something else to be aware of.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you.
Sure.
Next question. I want to know more about adaptogens. I keep hearing this buzzword. Is it a true benefit, pros and cons of taking? Which ones are most supported by the research and any risks?
Sure. So I talked about adaptogens during the presentation, so I can follow up on this. So adaptogens, herbs that fall into that adaptogen category, there's quite a few of them. The term actually came about, I think, in the 1950s, kind of post-World War II, when they were looking at different sorts of herbal tonics, especially in Russia, that soldiers could use to sort of maintain endurance. And they looked at lots of different traditional herbs. One of the early ones was Eleutherococcus, which is Siberian ginseng, but also Asian ginseng. Ashwagandha is one of the hottest and most trending adaptogens right now, and that's the one that I mentioned. And these come from a lot of different traditional medicines, from Ayurveda in India, from traditional Chinese medicine, European, and Russia in particular, like I mentioned. So with each one of these adaptogens, the effects are going to be a little bit different. They have different levels of research, different amounts of research per ingredient. Ashwagandha is getting a little bit more data recently because this is a bit of a hot ingredient and there's some different data out there. Probably the dietary supplement companies that you're working with or their ingredient suppliers could supply more information on those. But really they help with responding to stress. Ashwagandha in particular has been shown to help lower cortisol levels. We know cortisol is the stress hormone that goes up when we're under stress, so it seems to modulate stress, the feelings of stress, and also lower cortisol levels. And each of the ingredients have a little bit different effects. One just to be aware of is licorice. So licorice can raise blood pressure. So if you do have people who have hypertension, that's one that you're going to want to be careful with. Licorice can actually raise blood pressure quite a bit. So that's one to watch out for.
Interesting, thank you. And again, any follow-up questions, anything that comes from any of this, please put it in the chat box and we will get to them, as many questions as we can. The next question, after viewing CRN slides, could Andrea or Luke give us a list of dietary supplements on the market now that have not met FDA or FTC requirements that we can recommend our customers avoid?
And I can take that one, Nancy. So FDA has a dietary supplement ingredient advisory list, and that's something they came up with just last year. It's intended to quickly alert the public when FDA has identified ingredients that don't appear to be complying with dietary supplement regulations. And we support this tool wholeheartedly, and we've actually flagged ingredients for FDA to consider, and we have warned consumers as well. It's a great resource for retailers like yourselves, for manufacturers and other businesses, to help avoid selling or manufacturing or distributing dietary supplements that don't comply with federal regulation. And we've provided a link to this advisory list. It's in our slide deck. It's under the resource slide, and under FDA, I think it's the third bullet. But of course, you can also just Google FDA dietary supplement ingredient advisory list. So in addition to that, CRN encourages customers or consumers to be smart supplement shoppers. On our own website, we have a fact sheet that provides tips for consumers, and this can be a great guide for you to use as you talk to your customers about recommending safe products that they can take, and also to help consumers know what to avoid. And some of these tips include managing expectations. So for example, claims that something can promise dramatic results overnight. Those are two huge red flags to avoid. And then also looking for nationally recognized brands from trusted retailers like the companies that you all work for, looking for quality seals or third-party certifications. But I do want to note that the lack of a quality seal or a lack of a third-party certification does not mean that the product is of not high quality. Also to be cautious on internet sites, so avoiding those fly-by-night companies, again, those ones that are promising these instant dramatic results. Doing your own homework about products, because there is a lot of information that's out there. And then finally, to talk to their healthcare providers about the supplements that they're taking already, and then also the supplements that they are considering taking. So you can find this tip sheet. It's on our website, crnusa.org. It's under the resources tab. And I believe we're putting together the tip sheet as well as a bunch of other resources. It's going to go out to the Shopping for Health newsletter this fall.
Okay. A quick follow-up on that, Andrea. What does CRN do to address companies that are making illegal claims, whether related to COVID or anything else?
Yeah, so in terms of COVID, back in February, we were proactive. We sent out a strong warning to both companies, telling them do not make claims that on your products that the product can help to treat, prevent, or cure COVID-19, and also to tell consumers to avoid purchasing or taking products that do make these types of claims. And we are always trying to amplify FDA's voice in terms of their warnings to consumers about COVID-19 claims or other egregious claims or even illegal ingredients. So we'll amplify their voice through press statements or information on our websites for consumers and retailers. So those are just a couple of ways that we've been working to make sure that companies are doing the right thing.
Okay, thank you. Here's another question that just came in. Since there is a fairly large population of low vitamin D status, would sunlight complemented with vitamin D supplementation be the best treatment? And how much sunlight is necessary?
I can take that one. I think the challenge with sunlight is we all need to be getting our vitamin D status up, but we also have to be aware of skin cancer, right? So we need to make sure that we're using skin protection, that we're not increasing our risk of skin cancer. A lot of people have family history of skin cancer, so we need to be aware of that. We always recommend that people talk to their physician about what's right for them. Different people have different risk factors based on their specific situation. However, vitamin D supplementation is very safe. It's something that people can do every day. The RDI went up for vitamin D to 10 micrograms or 400 IUs to 20 micrograms or 800 IUs. So people should be making sure that they're getting that amount each day. So I think supplementation is very important. I think just for our health, it's good to be outside and you know, in a social distancing way, making sure that we're getting exercise and being physically active. But we do need to protect our skin from the sun. So as we use different types of sunscreens, of course, that's going to not block vitamin D production, but lower it, but at the benefit of protecting our skin from skin cancer. And that's very important. So from my perspective, it would be supplementation with vitamin D while also getting outside, but using some skin protection. But talk to your doctor about your individual case.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, you know, vitamin D is somewhat unique in that there are very few natural food sources for vitamin D. You have to look for some fortified products like milk, for example, and not everybody drinks milk. So supplementation can be a good way to get enough vitamin D. And another tool that you can use to determine what you need, besides taking a look at your overall eating habits and if you're getting enough from your diet, is you could also get your vitamin D status measured. So it's a blood test that you can get done.
Very good, thank you. Another question that just came in, I guess sometime this morning. Are we noticing any increase in supplements in children under the age of 18 due to COVID? Any insight in purchasing behavior among diverse populations or regional representation? So I guess children age-wise or any other geographic changes you might have noticed.
I wonder if it's okay. Yeah, I mean, we do have Brian on the line here. He's one of our other CRN staffers who's been really focused on who's been taking what supplements during COVID-19. And we've mostly looked at adult data. I haven't seen as much with the children's data, but I don't know if Brian's available, if he has any comments on that.
Yeah, we haven't seen, I mean, at least Luke and I have not seen data for children. We've seen them from 18 and above.
Yeah, he may have stepped away, but we haven't really seen it so much with kids. It's mostly been adult data. And yes, definitely a bump in the sales of immune supplements with adults, but we haven't seen as much data on kids in particular.
Okay, great. And of course, we'll be talking about that more with Brian during the panel, so we can
sure.
Okay, another question that just came in. The FDA recently is allowing temporary ingredients changes without changes to the labels. Is this the same for supplements?
It could apply to supplements, but I think this is much more applicable to conventional foods. So this has to do with supply chain issues that are happening with ingredients. So I think, for example, if you have a product that's labeled to contain unbleached flour or a bleached flour, but there's seems to be a shortage, or there was a shortage in terms of the bleaching agent that was available, you could substitute unbleached flour and not have to make a wholesale label change. But I don't think that this is really going to be prevalent for supplements.
Okay, very good, thank you. Could you speak on new research that CRN has found on the use of elderberry?
Sure, I can speak to that a little bit. So in terms of new research, there's not new research for COVID-19 really with any dietary supplement ingredient at this point, including elderberry. However, elderberry does fall into that immune category and one that people are looking at quite a bit. Historically, elderberry was studied for the flu, and there are researchers out of Israel in particular that looked at this over the last 20 years. So people have been using elderberry more. We know sales are up, and there's been a little bit of controversy on the science side about whether or not that's a good thing, because elderberry stimulates the immune system, specifically cytokines, and so that led to some worries that, in COVID in particular, as you get towards the later stages, there's an increase in cytokines, there's an increase in inflammation. Could that be harmful? So it seems like the way that people are coming down is prophylactically taking elderberry seems fine, we think. But in the later stages, it's not something that we want to do because it might be overstimulating the immune system. And a lot of this comes out of Andrew Weil's center at University of Arizona. So if you want to check out their specific statement on it, you can go to their website, and they talk about elderberry, and they talk about taking it maybe prophylactically, but not taking it when you start to have symptoms.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I've seen a lot of interest in melatonin, and I'm curious if you can speak to the delivery method. Many people I talk to use dissolving sheets and pills. I wonder if that would be able to be used sooner to bedtime, 9 to 11 hours prior to the midpoint of sleep mentioned in the presentation. So I guess the timing of melatonin and the delivery method.
Sure, and I can take that one. So quick dissolve products could quicken the result in faster absorption, but I'm not familiar with the science specifically on melatonin and quick dissolve formats. Any claims of faster absorption would of course have to be accompanied by research. And in terms of taking the product closer to bedtime, I would say see what works for you. So maybe the first night you try it close to bedtime. If you're finding that it's not working, maybe try to shift it a little bit earlier, but definitely don't pick a night where you are gonna take it at 5 p.m. and then go out and have to drive somewhere. So just be careful with that. There are melatonin products that are available in forms that are conducive to bedtime delivery, like drops or melts. So those are things that are easy to take just before you're going to bed. And because the dosage of melatonin is small, we're talking like, typically 3 to 5 or maybe 10 milligrams. You don't have to worry about taking a bulky pill of melatonin with a glass full of water like you might have to with some of the minerals. And so this is actually pretty good because, if you think about it, you want to try and sleep, and the last thing you want is to have to take a full glass of water with your melatonin and then wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. So there's definitely different formulations that are available, and I would just say it really is a case-by-case basis.
Okay, very good.
Just to build on that, a lot of these kind of easy delivery formats, like the strips, like you're talking about, and Andrew was talking about, or the drops, even though they're kind of easier and kind of melt in your mouth faster, they often may just be absorbed at the same rate as everything else in the GI tract. So unless you really have data on that or a specific provable claim that a company is able to make, you can't assume that it's going to be working any faster or better.
Okay. A question just came in about fish oil pills. And is there an issue of mercury in fish oil pills, or is that primarily filtered out?
Luke,
Andrea, do you want to take it, or I can take it? Yeah. So maybe we can both take it. I'll do it around too. So I've worked in the supplement industry for about 20 years and worked with several companies that make fish oil. And there's really pure fish oil on the market. I think historically, maybe going back in time, this was more of an issue. It's definitely an issue with fish. I mean, we know that, right? Certain areas, swordfish, larger fish, we know there's an issue with mercury and certain heavy metals. But with fish oil, they're typically using smaller fish. It's typically sardines, anchovies, and mackerel that have lower loads of heavy metals to start with. And then they go through a process of molecular distillation typically that filters that out. And most products will want to meet California Prop 65 levels, which are very specific for the amounts of heavy metals that you can have in there.
And I'll just add to that all dietary supplements are subject to good manufacturing practice regulations, and that would include accounting for contamination by things like heavy metals. So they would set specifications and make sure that every product that goes out the door meets those limits or below the limits for heavy metals or other contaminants.
Okay. What would your recommendations be for the best dose or the desired dose of EPA, DHA for anti-inflammatory benefits?
I don't have an exact dose for anti-inflammatory benefits, but a lot of retailers are looking to see at least 500 milligrams of combined EPA and DHA because many of the benefits, including cardiovascular benefits, and some of those cardiovascular benefits could be coming from the anti-inflammatory effects as well. But we also know that fish oil, especially high doses of EPA, can lower triglycerides. But I would be thinking about 500 milligrams of combined EPA DHA as a starting point. And I know that sometimes people can go quite a bit higher.
Yeah, and this is a great opportunity to follow up that when you're looking at fish oil products or other omega-3 products, that you want to look for that EPA DHA content, not necessarily the total omega-3. So look closely on the label for EPA and DHA.
Okay. Follow-up question, Luke. Are there studies to show whether ashwagandha interacts with medications?
So I'm going to refer everybody to a website that I think would be very useful for you to have at your fingertips if you're able to. And it's called Natural Medicines. It used to be called Natural Medicines Comprehensive Database. But it's a great place to start when you're looking for drug nutrient interactions. It's one of the more comprehensive ones that I've seen. They do have individual subscriptions. There's some other places on the web where you can find this information, but this is a really comprehensive one. And depending on the condition, you might be looking at cardiovascular, neurological. There could be quite a few interactions. I know one safety issue that they've talked about with ashwagandha is not during pregnancy. It's not recommended during pregnancy. But for people who are on a medication and concerned, you may want to try to look that up. You could potentially call the manufacturer or maybe refer them to their doc. But it's going to be a little different for each case, and I'd have to kind of try to dig it up right here. But any of you could do that too, and it may be good just to kind of have the tools, so if it comes up, you can look it up.
Okay, very good. Next question just came in. A Medscape article last year raised concern about melatonin and whether or not it should be moved to prescription-based. Is there a concern regarding melatonin abuse?
I don't think
I haven't heard about this. Go ahead, Andrew.
Well, me neither. I was going to say that, from what I've read, there isn't really any addictive properties of melatonin that would lead to abuse of the ingredient. So I have not come across that issue. We did our own safety review of melatonin a few years back as part of our best practice guidelines for the industry. And in that review, that was a few years back, but I'm not sure if there's been much more data added to that knowledge base. Doses up to 10 milligrams for supplements is definitely safe for adults. And then if you're going to look at sensitive populations like children, you'd have to definitely talk to your healthcare provider about what doses would be right for them. But yeah, there is a safe ingredient for supplementation. I know that for food, it's not allowed because with food, you're looking at multiple sources. You could be eating it in your cupcake or your drink, and then it starts really adding up. But for supplements, because it's in a specific dose that you just basically take before bed or one time a day, that the safety it has a good safety profile.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I've absolutely heard the exact same thing about melatonin. Very safe ingredient, safe supplement, especially at these lower doses. I do know that in certain countries, they classify melatonin differently because it is a hormone. And so in some countries, they won't have it as a dietary supplement just because it falls into a different category. Not because of any particular safety studies, but just how it's categorized.
Luke, one more about ashwagandha. You said, we understand that you said it's not recommended during pregnancy. What about postpartum? This person says that she's heard that it helps with mood and hormone balance after labor and delivery, but is not familiar about the specific research. Anything on that?
What I saw on postpartum is there's inadequate research to make a decision for postpartum ashwagandha. So in that case, I would always recommend against it because we don't know enough to make that decision. However, talk to your doctor. They may have a unique position on it. But that's the place that I would come from on that.
Okay, great. Okay, we've got a few more minutes, so let's just take some more of these questions. Someone asked about your thoughts on 5-HTP. I see interest in it for anxiety and depression from customers and would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. So 5-HTP, it's 5-hydroxytryptophan. So that is a dietary supplement that's a biochemical step closer to serotonin. And it's been shown to have benefits with dysthymia, depression, not quite as much with anxiety. However, we know those are linked. Because it's an amino acid, those are typically recommended to be taken away from proteins. So you'd want to take that on an empty stomach, probably, at least half an hour before eating protein, so it just doesn't kind of combine with it and lose its effect. That's the way that's typically thought of. 5-HTP may also increase melatonin. They're kind of linked. And I believe some have said that 5-HTP could potentially help with sleep too. So some interesting research on it. It looks positive, but we need more and bigger studies. But right now it looks positive what we've seen so far in 5-HTP.
Okay. And another product, lemon balm. Someone notes that she says people take it 2 times a day to manage stress and anxiety. Could doses be taken 1 time a day at a higher level, or is that not preferred because of absorption rates?
Yeah, so there's different lemon balm products, and there's different studies that were done. So some were given the way that the listener was describing, but also it has been given 600 milligrams at one time. So it looks like it could be given either way, and it seems like it's fine.
Okay. We're asking someone to ask you to repeat again the website you recommend to look up potential interactions. And what
Sure.
do you think? And one more thing, what do you think of the NIH website for accuracy on that topic?
No, I think the NIH Office of Dietary Supplements website is fantastic. That's another one that I would recommend. This website, it's by a company, TRC, Therapeutic Research Center, and the website is, it's called Natural Medicines. It used to be called Natural Medicines Comprehensive Database, and they dropped Comprehensive Database. Now it's just Natural Medicines by TRC. TRC makes a bunch of these reference publications, like the Pharmacist Letter, that sort of thing. But yeah, I recommend checking it out. Another place that has some interesting information is Oregon State University Linus Pauling Institute. They have a lot of interesting research on dietary supplement ingredients. Andrew Weil's site at University of Arizona has put out some reference information specifically during COVID-19, which is interesting. So a couple of places to check out.
Okay, and several people have typed that information in our general Q&A box. So thank you for that. If anybody's looking to write that down, it's there. One more question, Luke, that just came in is about children and anxiety. What supplements, if any, have been studied for use for that and are safe to recommend for that?
Children's tough. So with children, I often think of, so I'm thinking of some supplements, but I'm not sure exactly how much of this data has been done in children. L-theanine is one that we know that we look at with adults. It's an amino acid that's found in green tea. It doesn't have any caffeine. It's just an amino acid and glycine. But what I would recommend doing is doing some research to see if this has been studied in children. Again, maybe natural medicines, or you could have people talk to their physician about it. But those are one. Oh, chamomile. Okay, so that should be one for kids. So chamomile tea, that would be a really easy one that we know could be safe and that has calming effects. So I'd consider that, and you could look up the other ones, see what the research is on kids.
That's great. All right, thank you so much, Luke and Andrea. This has been terrific. Would you guys please put up the slide again of their contact information? This is for Holly Boatman, who I hope is still with us. This is her contact. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free. Holly, give a wave. I see you there. a lot of you know Holly already, but I'm sure she'd be glad to take any follow-up questions that you have. And there's the CRN website information. And I just want to thank the Council for Responsible Nutrition once again for being a part of Shopping for Health. This was a terrific presentation, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
All right.